Hey guys, what's up? It's JD here, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the Star Wars Battlefront 2 beta. So, with the beta finally over and having put a good few hours into each of the game modes it had to offer, I feel like it's kind of now a good time to look back on what DICE did right and what could do with some improvement in the time leading up to release. Who knows, maybe some of the criticisms I level at the beta in this video may be addressed by the time we hit launch. So, let's get right into this, starting with the most obvious thing first, the game mechanics. There have been several new additions to the way the newest entry in DICE's rebooted Star Wars Battlefront series plays out. The pickup system seen in the previous game for vehicles, power-ups and heroes has been entirely scrapped and replaced with the battle point system, which I'm going to be going into further detail with later. Thankfully, the new combat role no longer provides a jerky burst of speed, but is useful in diving over mines and out of the way of incoming fire and grenades. Furthermore, you can also now dive forwards and backwards, just like in Pandemic's original two Star Wars Battlefront games. The use of sprinting no longer comes with the risk of showing up on the enemy unit's minimap, so you no longer have to worry about the risk of the enemy getting the drop on you whilst you're trying to get to the action. Another plus is the partner spawning system from the previous game has been dropped, and you're now simply just going to spawn in as a squad of 5 troopers, which encourages more team play rather than just going out there alone and being caught out by the enemy. Unfortunately, the spawn points still leave a lot to be desired in Galactic Assault, with the beta tending to plop you in a fair distance away from the action, which requires the player to then close down some ground and waste some valuable time to get back into the battle. The in-game HUD has also been revamped, and it's a massive improvement for the most part, with perhaps the only negative point being the thinner, larger crosshairs. I found this just makes losing sight of your aim much more common, especially in brighter areas when it just seems to blend in with the map itself. A smaller, tighter crosshair with maybe a central dot would make all the difference, and it would make a big difference in the fast-paced firefights that occur in this game. That being said, from what I can tell, aiming down the scope or sights now does improve your accuracy, which is a decent addition to the game. With this beta, we got 2 ground maps, Naboo and Takodana, and 1 space map, Fondor. So the limited number of maps we got also does kind of limit what I can say on this topic, but from what I've seen, the game does a pretty good job. Visually, the maps are outstanding, which, if anything, is one of the most consistent things that DICE has delivered on with both this game and the previous one. Feed actually probably looks better here in the game than it did in the Phantom Menace itself, which is just really saying something on how far we've come from 1999. The layouts of the ground maps are solid, and the sizes are pretty good when it comes to considering the number of players and the game mode that we're playing on. With the jump pack no longer a major overused feature in this game, it's also been made possible to have far smaller maps for game modes like Strike, which is a breath of fresh air compared to the last game. DICE also delivers on the little details, so with the captured clone troopers and terrified civilians running for their lives at the beginning of Galactic Assault and Feed, as well as nice little things like leaves blowing in the wind and birds flying away when you approach them. It's really neat to see details like that in the game, and I can't wait to see what DICE has in store for the other maps yet to come. Fondor is a solid entry for space combat, and it's a great choice for a map location. Going into this game, I was kinda worried that the space maps would be awfully generic with very little to distinguish between them. This map has completely wiped away any worries I had about that, and dare I even say it, it's kinda broken the mold from something that even the OG Battlefront 2 seemed to be plagued by. The beta gave us 3 modes, Galactic Assault, Strike, and Starfighter Assault. Gone is the flagship and probably my favourite game mode from the first game, Walker Assault. Battlefront 2's new flagship large game mode is Galactic Assault, and oh boy does it deliver. This game mode offers a different objective according to the map you're playing on and the era that it's set in, which is an idea which has tons of potential. With the 3 different phases of this game mode, it switches things up a lot. The gameplay in the first phase is initially a frantic rush to the objectives from opposite sides of the map, which gives some long-range firefights. The second phase sees the 2 sides clash in the palace, which causes some fast-paced gunplay, and the third and final phase is set in a confined area in the throne room, which gives for some close-quarters combat. This plays to the strengths of every type of player on the field, and you can see someone who started at the bottom of the leaderboard end up near the top by its end. Strike is the smaller 6v6 game mode, and like the smaller game modes in the previous game, it strips away features of the larger scale battles like heroes and vehicles to focus strictly on infantry combat and playing the objective. For me personally, this is probably the most fun of the 3 game modes due to its highly competitive nature, which gave for some of the most intense battles I experienced in the beta. As a smaller game mode, it's easy to pick up and play, and yet it doesn't feel any less Star Warsy. My only complaint is the slight bias towards the rebel side and the fact that overtime can go on forever. It can result in players just dicking around trying to get as many kills as possible instead of actually playing the objective. It'd be good to actually see it capped to something like, I don't know, 2 minutes at launch. The final game mode, Starfighter Assault, is probably the hidden gem among the three. What little space combat we got in DICE's previous game was plagued by hideous PC controls, crappy pickups, and limited ship choices. Criterion really have done wonders with this game mode, to say the least. It's really a fantastic experience. The terrible controls from the first game are gone, and it now plays similar to almost a kind of cross between the OG Battlefront 2 and War Thunder, which opens up a whole load of possibilities for some tense, skillful and cinematic dogfights. There's also plenty of objectives to complete, from bombing enemy cruisers, disabling shield generators, picking off enemy fighters, or even just taking out hero ships. So all in all, there's plenty of ways to contribute to your team and get your shot of playing as either reinforcements or even hero ships. Thank f***ing God, they actually listened to us. This was one of my biggest issues with the previous game, and I'm so happy they fixed it. Classes really do add something to this game, and it actually encourages players to actually play as a team as opposed to ramboing it out there on your own. Yeah, I know that's ironic coming from me. Star Wars Battlefront is simply not Battlefront without classes, and I'm so glad they've learned that, albeit the hard way. In terms of each of the classes, Assault is a good all-rounder but a master of none. It's good at what it's made for. It's good for going out there and getting the objective done. Vanguard is a good ability for close range. It may seem a bit overpowered in the right hands, but it does take some skill to aim with it, so I'd say it's fine as it is, despite a few people saying it needs a nerf. The Heavy class was a dominant choice throughout the beta, especially in the early stages before everyone found out about the EE4. This class can be a pain in the ass to come up against, with its 200 health points soaking up a fair amount of punishment, and it lets them easily flatten weaker units like the Assault class when in a 1v1 situation. I'd say maybe reduce the cooldown on the shield, but also reduce the health to, I don't know, around 150 points. That'll probably make it a little bit more balanced. The Officer class was definitely the weakest in open play, and yet I still managed to pick up a ton of points using this guy in the right situation. It nails its role as a support unit, and it really comes into its own in the narrow corridors and the throne room of Feed Palace in Galactic Assault, with its infantry, turret and squad abilities. I found that a good officer player on a coordinated team could be all the difference between victory and defeat. The pistols on offer also have a good range on them, and the unlockable Blurg pistol, or however the hell you're supposed to pronounce that, has a cool craftable splash damage ability. The final class is the Specialist, which is designed for long-range combat with its sniper rifle, although most players, myself included in the end, resorted to using its unlockable EE4 ability and the craftable burst fire A280 CFE as a crutch in almost all forms of combat. It's probably the one class that actually does need a nerf before launch, as it seems to completely outperform all three of the other classes in its current state. It's just too easy being equipped with what is easily the best gun in the game, and being able to see the locations of the enemy on the map. Oh, for fuck's sake, not more of this shit. I desperately wanted instant action for this game. Is that just too much to ask? The battle scenarios that the beta offered take the place of the missions modes in the previous game and were for the most part a good fun experience, but they're far too short to really contribute anything to the beta, and there's no more really to say on it. With the addition of the campaign in the game, it really is a step in the right direction in terms of single player, but a full all-out instant action game mode bringing most of, if not all of the online game modes to offline battles against AI really would be a make or break in winning back a lot of players that were turned away by the shallow previous entry in this series. I'm just guessing we're going to have to wait and see until launch, which really sucks at this point, to be honest. This just works. The pickup system in the previous game was just naff and it felt way too arcadey, which didn't really go with the whole immersive experience thing that DICE were trying to go with. This system operates a lot better in my opinion. It encourages skillful play and contributing to your team either through reinforcements, vehicles or hero units. The system of investing in a reinforcement to gain back the points you spent on it and then some extra ones too, it's really a sound idea and it really does work in action. In terms of reinforcements, the Jet Trooper units are probably in need of some kind of nerf, as the combo of their mobility from the jetpack and their deadly abilities mean that I found myself picking up some easy points there. The First Order Flame Trooper is the complete opposite and it just flat out sucks in its current form. Its flamethrower could do with a serious buff by giving it an afterburn effect or something like that to make it more effective at close range, considering that's what it's actually supposed to be good for. The heroes in the game are the hardest units to unlock and require some more skillful and tactical play. Each of the heroes are good fun to play and have a good variety of abilities. They now have reduced health compared to those in Battlefront 1, which means you can no longer just rush a load of guys and come out unscathed. Nope, now you actually need to play more tactically as heroes and use their abilities to their maximum effectiveness. In terms of abilities, I have no complaints, except Maul does desperately need a blocking ability. Even if it just lasts for a reduced time period, I don't give a shit. It just doesn't make sense that a Sith Lord can't defend himself against blaster fire. As for the whole cross-era heroes issue, I completely agree that it's a questionable decision to have a sequel trilogy character like Rey fighting alongside clone troopers against droids. That's the kind of thing that, in my opinion, should be saved strictly for hero-based game modes like Heroes vs Villains. I'm kind of hoping that it'll just be a placeholder until there are enough heroes and villains for each era, as the sequels and the prequels only have one hero and villain each at this point in time, but who knows. I mean, at this point, I'm a bit late to the party on this, and there's not much I can add that everyone on YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, and everywhere else on the internet hasn't already said. Yes, it's we're paying the full price for the game, and then we have to put up with a pay-to-win system. From what I've seen, there will indeed be different crates for each of the different classes, and so yes, you can put all your focus into leveling up the classes you main, but at the same time, locking progression behind what is a luck of the draw system is a fairly crappy idea, and the backlash from the community is probably about what you'd expect given the situation. Given that the whole season pass setup from the last game has been scrapped, and thankfully so, because that just broke the player base in the previous game, it's not really too surprising that EA would implement microtransactions in the game to make up for the loss of income on that front. That being said, you'd expect these microtransactions to be in the form of skins, cosmetics, and customization options, not the entire progression system itself. Not really too much more I can add on this subject. If this is a real decider in whether you buy the game or not, which it should be to be fair, I'd really consider looking into it more. At this point, this whole video is dedicated to the topic here on YouTube. To conclude, there's tons of positives and negatives to be taken away from the beta, and plenty of feedback for EA and DICE to consider before launch. I personally would consider the game a success or a failure based on how often I found myself coming back to it after having a break, which is something this game did kinda have me doing. I ended up putting in about 11 hours total into the beta, but I found myself playing for no longer than about an hour at a time before getting bored or giving up and doing something else. You can chalk that up to the limited content offer in the beta or just the nature of the gameplay itself. Most of the things in the game at this point seem to work pretty well. There's a definite room for improvement, and fair play to DICE and everyone working on this game. I expect they'll take a lot of this feedback on board. In the meantime, I'll reserve my final judgment for the end product, but I will say this is a huge improvement on the previous outing, which I know is not too difficult. At this point, it just looks even weaker than ever when compared to both this game and the OG Battlefronts. So, that'll about do it for this video. If you've made it this far, then congratulations, you've probably lasted longer than I would have watching this. There's a lot to take on board here, I know. But that'll do it from me. Thanks everybody for watching, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Cheers, I'll catch you later.